1.30 megawatts as of 6 a.m. on Sunday. The nation generates most of its electricity from gas-fired power plants, while output from hydropower plants make up about 30% of the total. The Executive Secretary of the Association of Power Generation Companies, Dr. Joy Ogaji, attributed the problem to transmission and distribution. For more on this, I have energy expert Daniel Das joining me in the studio now live. Good morning, Daniel, and welcome to the Global Business Report.
Good morning, Evia.
So let's start with a very general question.
Okay.
Anybody that lives in Nigeria knows that we lack constant electricity supply. Why is this?
Well, the infrastructure is aging, and the distribution companies are faced with huge losses, which is primarily the reason why when you go upstream, because the collection happens at the distribution company's end, and that money gets paid to the generation companies and transmission companies and so on. So when the distribution companies are faced with the losses, they're unable to pay for the energy that comes in. And so the losses are there, the energy is not being paid for, the infrastructure cannot be upgraded, hence you have this problem.
Okay, but a lot of the statistics that we're getting are quite different because the reality on ground does not tally with what the Minister of Power, Fashola, has said. He said as of 3 months ago in Calabar that power generation had reached 7,000 megawatts, right? And it had been increasing for the last 3 years.
Yes.
Now we're seeing that we've been hovering below 4,000 and it's even plunged lower. So why is it that this information does not tally? I mean, we clearly see that the issue is not generation, it's distribution. So what is the biggest challenge to incremental power?
Yes. So let me just add another statistic. Last year, between August 13th and 20th, 2017, right? The distribution companies rejected 9,310 megawatts of power from the generation companies.
Why?
Because they could not take it. And that's attributed to the aging infrastructure. So they can't distribute it, because if they would take in that power, they'd have to pay for that power. And now, if you do not have a proper collection system accounting for
if you
the
can't
payments,
properly collect, you can't properly distribute.
You can't properly distribute. So, and you can't even pay for the power that is coming in. So when you say of this, when you look at the statistic that you mentioned right now, yes, the operational capacity of the generation plants is actually increasing. It's at 7,500 to 8,000 megawatts.
So the capacity is increasing.
Is increasing and is there. And in fact, Nigeria doesn't have a problem of producing power. We don't have that problem. The problem we have is the losses that happen at the distribution end. So another statistic, most of the distribution companies operate at an efficiency level of 25 to 30%, or more 35%, which means out of 100 units of power that they buy, they're able to collect money for only 35 units. And now, when that happens, you're losing 65 units worth of power. If you can't pay for it, you can't collect your money for upgrading the infrastructure, you can't improve your, you can't pay for staff salaries, a whole lot of problems come in. And therefore, so when the distribution companies cannot pay for the power that is given to them, no generation company would now further step in to give them more power to lose. Like if you're eating, if you have a rice bowl, if your rice bowl has a hole which is equal to more than 50% of its size, would you rather block the hole first, or would you keep on putting in more rice? Because no matter how much you put, it's going to flow out. It's going to come out unaccounted for. And that's the problem.
Okay, so it would be a waste of time to have you here to just talk about the problems at hand, right? But 90 to 95 million Nigerians lack constant electricity supply. So how do we ameliorate the situation with all these issues that you've now highlighted?
Well, fixed distribution, because that's the rice bowl of this entire industry.
But if that's the solution, why aren't they fixing distribution?
Well, okay. Well, the government did start off with privatization a few years ago. It was a welcome step, and it is still a good step. There are issues with that, which is natural. One of the things that is plaguing the industry is lack of finance.
Lack of finance?
Lack of finance.
In Nigeria?
In Nigeria, yes. Okay. So, when you talk about distribution companies, you also have to see the value of the assets that they have and all that for the banks to give them the money and the amount of money they need. As per the Vice President, Mr. Osinbajo, he said, I think earlier this last month, in October, I believe, he said that Nigeria needs around $1 trillion in the next 29 years. So that's a lot of money, and most of it is going to go into distribution. You need to do metering. Most of the households that we have in Nigeria do not have meters. They don't have meters. And if you cannot meter, if you cannot measure what's being supplied, there's no way you can collect the bill for that. So that has to be fixed. So financing has to be fixed. Metering has to be fixed. Distribution has to be fixed. You fix these things, the upstream will automatically sort itself out.
But okay, so in comparison to other African countries like Ghana, Rwanda, Kenya, that seem to have gotten it right, or at least getting it done better than we are, how can we sort of imitate what these economies have done with regards to distribution of power?
Okay.
Because I know you did mention some of the challenges, so if you can highlight that, and also how we can imitate these economies.
Okay. Nigeria is unique. We need not imitate them because they are small countries. If you look at Kenya, it's like around 46, 47 million population. I mean, just twice of Lagos, I would believe. So problems here are complex. Problems here are complex. Networks here are complex. And but I'll just give you a statistic here. So if you look at the GDP, the annual growth rate, the GDP annual growth rate of Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria. Let's just compare these three, right? So Nigeria grew year on year at 1.5%. Earlier this year, the growth was around 1.5%.
Yeah.
Ghana was 5.4, around 5.4, around 5.4. Kenya was around 6.3. And if you look at the curves, it correlates with the energy consumption curve. Ghana, the per capita electricity consumption in Ghana is around 350 kilowatt hours, whereas in Nigeria it's around 150 kilowatt hours. Where am I coming at with this information? Consumption in Nigeria has to go up. Okay, consumption has to go up because it's true for every other economy, every other business. Consumption has to go up also. So if we want to see how we can make things better, like the other economies, and not just Rwanda or Kenya or Ghana, but even China or US. Okay. Well, fixed distribution. Fixed distribution. That's the only way to go. You have to improve the financing. So I know of a few companies. I think one who's using blockchain technology to provide collateral-free financing for enabling metering, right? Because financing is a problem for metering. Like if you want to put in, let's say, 100,000 meters, okay, and if you take an average cost of, let's say, $100 for installing a meter, like from buying, installing it, like in your house, let's say it's $100. You're looking at $1 million, I believe, or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So $100 million for 1 million meters. So if you're looking at one distribution company having 1 million customers, it's $100 million for 1 million customers. And Nigeria has close to, as per my estimate, 200 million people on 20 million connections. Wow. So you can just multiply 20 million connections multiplied by $100. That's like a lot of $1 million.
Okay, so you've mentioned really big issues here, like the first one obviously being financing, right? And the second, as with most industries in the country, being population, rather, right? So do we see any possible solution in sight? And if so, how soon?
Okay. Well, I wouldn't be able to say how soon, but if...
You can predict. You're an expert.
Well, you see... if the country does a few things right, if the financing is made right, right, if the country adopts new technology in smart metering, because the meters that we have on the ground here, they're like old, non-smart meters.
So they're not even accurate then?
They're not even accurate. You don't get the data to your head office, so you don't know what's going on. Somebody could have bypassed the meter, so somebody could have pulled off the meter and thrown it away, and you wouldn't know. So you should have smart meters with real-time data. You should improve the financing of these meters by using new technologies, newer systems, like you use blockchain for financing. That's one of the best ways to do. Because one of the problems of obtaining finance is all the discos and all the meter asset providers, the banks, asking for money, and the bank would ask them for collateral. And there's no collateral. You can't provide collateral for $200 million. So, and that's even a start.
And you said this blockchain technology is collateral-free.
It can enable collateral-free financing from people. Like somebody can, in Korea, can finance 20 meters in Nasarwa. Somebody in Germany can finance 50 meters in Lagos. And it doesn't even need to know where. So you can have an end-to-end system where you provide transparency, visibility of how the money is deployed, how the energy is used, paid for, and the man who has invested gets his money. And so it can be a collateral-free based financing. And so unless we do not adopt new technologies, new metering systems, new financing, innovative financing structures.
And you talked about the aging infrastructure, yeah.
You really cannot sort this out. So if we do these things right, if we adopt newer systems, we're there. We'll be there.
In how soon?
How soon? Okay. Okay. If somebody had, let's say, $1 billion, right? So $1 billion would take care of, let's say, 10 million customers, I believe. I'm just getting my math right or wrong, I don't know. So, or $2 billion for 20 million customers, right? If the distribution companies had that money today, it would still take them around 2.5 to 3 years just to deploy that magnitude of metering systems. It takes time. So even if you had the money today, it would take you 2.5 to 3 years, which is fine, because you're building infrastructure for the next 50 years. So 2 years is fine. But then we do not have the 2 billion today. So we have to wait when the money comes in, and then after that, you can say.
Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I've been talking to expert Daniel Das here. The stage seems to be set for a major confrontation between workers and government